has the virus, Bez Hashem, for Shlema. Yisrael Tzvi ben Henshechana. It's not good. Who's the thing? Oh, that's why it's not. Because it's not on this. It's not on this. It's not on this. See? It's on that one. All right, so we'll do it afterward. It's okay. Thank you. Thank you, whoever brought in the camera. Thank you also. Thank you for trying. Okay, so there's a lot to be clear. Let's try to clarify the whole sugya, Bez Hashem, of animal food. This is, it's even if you don't have animals, but it's of the biggest heterim that comes in Hilchos Muksa. It's of the biggest heterim. Dan, you hear me? Everyone hears me? Yeah. It's of the biggest heterim that come in Hilchos Muksa, being that, no, we're having a problem here. I'm having a problem. This is not going. This means it was on that. This was on that and not that. So is there any way I could, all right, so I'll just get it from Danny today. I guess close it. I don't want to. It's a tough day. Is it going to go or? No, you have to change the setting. I'm sorry, but I very much enjoy doing this. I don't know if you guys know that. Oh, they're all my God. Okay, so we'll on to it. Okay. Danny, you have it, right? Okay, so yeah, you have it though. You're recording, right? Okay, great. Okay, so it's a very negaya sugya, in as much as, even though mitzad most of us I think don't have animals. Does anybody here even have fish? Does anybody have? There's always that one guy. Now he doesn't want to tell us, right? Yeah, what? Had everyone here had. It's not the Shaila. Shaila is who has, but no, I know that Rabbi Zolti has. I mean, anybody else. Right? Yeah. Anyways, it's a very big kula. If we could apply this kula, it could definitely be a very, very negeya in Hilchos Shabbos, in Hilchos Muksa, because it means that much of the food that we have is not going to be problematic. Much of the food that goes into our garbage is going to be salvageable mitzad Hilchos Muksa. At least mitzad Hilchos Muksa, we could always say much of the food that we have going into our garbage, at least mitzad Hilchos Muksa, would at least be able to, give us the ability to move around our garbages, etc. So first of all, I saw like this. I saw in the Orchos Rabbeinu in the 141st page, he talks about crumbs, and he very much was nervous about these crumbs. The Orchos Rabbeinu over there brings down that the Stipler once told the author of Orchos Rabbeinu, the person who wrote all the Haggis, he once saw him moving around crumbs on Shabbos. And right away he told him, how could you do that? And he started to give him musar. And he told him the story of the Vilna Gaon, the story that the Gaon fainted. He was shocked that the author of the Orchos Rabbeinu didn't faint upon touching the crumbs. And once he moved the crumbs, he should have fainted. So you see that the Orchos Rabbeinu, the Stipler upon him, he took very seriously this business about crumbs, and that they held they were muksa. And it seems from the story that it was even during the meal. Seems like even during the meal. Myself, we said whatever limitzchus that we said the other day, and I stand strong to that limitzchus. Mistama, that's pshat in the minig oilam. I still think that you should do it in at least kilachar yad, like we said, at least with a tiltul minatzad. But you see, at least first of all, the Stipler learned kipshutai, that breadcrumbs are muksa. I don't know what it means. He learned that they're muksa during the meal. I don't know. It's mamish a big pellet to say that. But upon him, certainly after the meal, they learned it was muksa. And I said limitzchus for people that are not used to animals. So for them, we don't have these ethereum that it's going to the animals. It doesn't get the shame of animal food by us. So therefore, it never loses the shame of people food. And therefore, until it gets to the garbage, even then we could talk. But Akapanim, certainly, breadcrumbs, at least, because mandar on the tables, no shiloh, you could be mako at the notebook. So like I said, I would take it off minat sad. I would take it off with a knife or with a napkin or something. Got it? Got a also interesting thing. Over there, they bring down the Chaim Kanievsky in the back of the Sefer Time at the Kra. It's a Sefer he wrote, all different Zachen in the Parsha. So it's a point this week. I was looking at something in Parshas Vayechi, something nice. And he sends you to the back. In the back over there is Anhagas from the Chazon Ish. There's Anhagas that they did in the house of the Chazon Ish. So he says over there that the Chazon Ish on Shabbos was makbid not to touch the crumbs, but he would take the crumbs off the table with tiltum min atzad. He would take a knife or he would take a napkin, and they would, in the house. I don't know if the Chazon Ish was busy doing this, but that they would take off the crumbs with the tiltum min atzad. They would take it off with a napkin or with a knife or a kadaima. Okay, and that's what he writes there. Says anybody have a kasha? The Chazon Ish doesn't hold that. There's a heter. The Chazon Ish holds the only time there's a heter of tiltum min atzad is, let's say I'm taking this table, and derech hagav, when I take the table, there's a muksa on the table. But that's not, it's not, he learns tiltul min atzad is a tiltul that is not misyaches at all to the muksa. It has nothing to do with the muksa. It's an agav. The muksa gets moved along with that which I'm doing, assuming that the table is not a basis or whatever, like we spoke about. So in this case over here, let's say that the table wasn't a basis because there's a sitter on the table. So now I'm moving the table. So no one looks at it that I'm moving the computer, because the computer gets moved agav, because that's not what I'm coming to do. I'm not coming to move. If you want to move the table because you want the computer over there, you don't want the kids to knock over the computer. So then you're not agav moving the computer. You're doing tiltum min atzad, l'tzarich the muksa. That's not agav. But let's say I'm moving the table and I'm moving it because I need this area over here, and the computer is going to get moved along derech agav. That the Chazon Ish says is tiltum min atzad. Said the Chazon Ish, if I take a napkin, a broom, something, and I move away dirt, I move with a broom. It says that that's tiltum min atzad. That's exactly what you're doing. You can't say I'm not misyaches to the muksa. I'm kol kula misyaches to the muksa. You're pushing the muksa. You might be pushing the muksa because you want the area, etc. He says that's not called tiltum min atzad. Tiltum min atzad is when the muksa is being moved ba'agav. It's not what I'm coming to do. But over here, and listen closely, because the Balatanya, the Graz, he doesn't say that svar. He says a svar, it's a yada richta. I mentioned that svar once. That there's a svar that when I'm moving muksa and I'm not moving it with my hand, what's the difference if I move it with my hand? Or what's the difference if I move it with a knife? Or what's the difference if I move it with an extension of my hand? There's a little bit of a different svar. Chazon Ish is not saying a svara. It's the same type of Chazon Ish where everything is in the hisyachsis adav, how you view the item, like we spoke many times. So here, when I'm moving the breadcrumbs, the Chazon Ish should say you're the hedge moving the breadcrumbs. Call it a yada richta. Call it that you misyachis to the breadcrumbs. If they held in the stipler's home, like the Pashim Shat and Shulchan Aruch, that the breadcrumbs are muksa, so how's it shaykh that the stipler and the Chazon Ish that they were moving them with a knife? And it says that in the Chaim Kanievsky wrote it with his own pen. It's not like Ish Mipi Fish or something. A lot of times you get all these chuvas, you don't know if he wrote it. Here he wrote it. Mamish wrote it. It says in the front of the book that he wrote it. So here it says first that they moved the breadcrumbs with a knife. It's a good kasha. Mamish Pella, no? Mr. Brewer says it's mutter, but that's all of Mr. Brewer. She does say Mr. Brewer holds that when you take a knife and you're moving the crumbs and you're not doing it because you want to move the crumbs, you're doing it because you want the makim. That's called tiltul min atzad. Chazal weren't geyser if it's an indirect movement, as long as you're doing it for a mutatika purpose. So Chazal weren't geyser, indirect movement, let's say the makim. So the Mishabura it stems with. But it's Mishabura is quoting a Taz. It's really that's the psak halacha. We hold like the Mishabura. I'm only asking a kasha on the Chazon Ish, even though we don't paskin like the Chazon Ish, but it's for sure kasha on the Chazon Ish. It's mamish big pella, mamish pella. What do you say? Sorry? It says it in the bencher, and that's mamish mefurish now. In the bencher. No, mamish, it's probably on the bottom. It says, I ain't time in the crop. And there it says, that's how you move breadcrumbs. That means every person in Klal Yisrael that bought that bencher now, he's going to make the terrible mistake. So Melech in the rest of the world, they do it. Okay, so they have Meshura. But what if they do it in Bnei Brak? It'll be a terrible thing, because in Bnei Brak, they don't hold this. So what's the answer to the Chazon Ish? It's a big pella? What? But then why, if there's goldfish in Bnei Brak, then he wouldn't have to do it with a knife. He could do it with his hand. It says, no, he says mefurish, that he was makbid dafka to not do it with his hand because it's muksa. He said he did it with his knife. Yeah. So I don't know what to do about this one. I don't know what to do with this. There's a machlekes there's a sefer called the Shvus Yitzchak. It's written by Rabbi Darzi. And there's a sefer called the Yochel Shabbos. It's written by Rabbi Gelber and Rabbi Reuben. And they have a machlekes. They both asked this question to Chaim Kanievsky, and they both received different answers. I must tell you, I don't mind so much because the Maisa, we're going to do it anyways because the Mishabur is Mekel. So, and grata on the whole breadcrumbs we don't understand. But it's not just a shaila in breadcrumbs, it's a shaila on any time you move muksa. What's the answer to this shaila, right? So if you get breadcrumbs, let's say you'll say breadcrumbs aren't muksa, but you have to know what's going to be with, we'll see soon, maybe all types of different shells or whatever. So what's the answer? What's the answer about the shells? And it's a tremendous, so the Shvus Yitzchak, he asked this question to Chaim Kanievsky. And Chaim Kanievsky told him that in the house, we were mako like the Mishnah Berurah. Again, the Chazon Ish in Sefer, not everything that the Chazon Ish writes in Sefer is the halacha l'maisa. You know, the Chazon Ish was not writing his Sefer necessarily, anyways, as a Sefer for Klal Yisrael. The Chazon Ish was writing his own notes. Chazon Ish wrote his own notes, and that was, he had tremendous koyach pilpul. I saw Davar Nifla on Shabbos from Rabbi Nissen Krelitz, Davar Nifla, about the koyach pilpul of the Chazon Ish. It's unrelated, but it was unbelievable. He has a sefer now, Nissen Krelitz. I don't know if it just came out, but by me it just came out. That it was like all these uvdais and hanhagis and everything. I think it's like from a lot of the Rabbi Nissims put together that they put in one sefer. And over there he says that there were a lot of lost halachas. There were a lot of lost halachas in Klal Yisrael, he says. He says, and he says, and there were times that they came back, the pilpul of Gedolei Yisrael. Like, for example, Al Sniel ben Knaz, there were thousands of halacha mashmisinas that were lost, and he brought them back. He says, you see that you could bring back halacha with pilpul of Gedolei Yisrael. That's what he writes here. He says, Kedugma, like who? Like the Chazon Ish. This is what he writes. He says that, for example, Trumas and Maisris was like a forgotten Mitzvah in halacha, and he's right. There's mamish kemat no svarim before the Chazon Ish. Mamish kemat no svarim. And there were Talmidim of the Gra that came to live in Eretz Yisrael. It's not like, there should have been svarim. And the Chazon Ish with his pilpul was machzir the Torahs of Trumas and Maisris and Shemitas in general and everything. He was machzir with pilpul. Now you see thousands. That's right. He opened up the door. Because of his, but he says we don't have the ability to do that. We're ketanim right before the Ekvis Mashiach. He gives the example of Kallus. He says therefore that's what it means when Chaim Kanievsky writes back to people the nignas, right? That they shouldn't wear the Kallus because it's nignas. He says, what does it mean? It means we don't have the ability. Once there is something that was accepted as a lost halacha, once it's accepted, it's already, from the results, already nignas. So what does it mean? Maybe they found it. He says, no, we don't have the ability to bring it back. We don't have the ability to bring it back. You need either someone as big as the Chazon Ish to bring it back or something like that. And nobody has the ability to bring back a forgotten halacha. So it's just on the Mahalach Baruch upon him. So the Chazon Ish was so big, but not else, even though he was so big, the Chazon Ish, but in the house, not everything that he held of, they paskin like him. So Mamela, he paskin like the Mishnah Berurah in the house. And in the house, therefore they moved, that's what he says. Therefore, so trend is not communion, according to this. Even in Bnei Brak, his trend is not kamina. Even in Bnei Brak, let's say forget crumbs. I told you crumbs is a whole shaila. But anything, eggshells is for sure muksa, right? Shells that have no taste on them or whatever, totally muksa. According to this, even in Bnei Brak, you don't have to feel. Let's say you go to Bnei Brak for Shabbos, and then you always at the table, you take a knife and you move off the eggshells and like that into the garbage. So now you're in Bnei Brak. Asrei Demar, that's the makam of the Chazon Ish. So you feel like how could I do that in front of the place where the Chazon Ish and he's even buried there? So you think that maybe it would be a terrible thing. So now you say, well, the Chazon Ish himself paskin like the Mishnah Berurah. That's one mahalach. There's another mahalach, and that's somewhat what it sounds like in the Sefer time of the Krah. It sounds a little bit like that. I'm not 100% sure, but there's another mahalach. Rabbi Reuben, he brings over there, like there's like a letter or something like that. He brings there, they asked Chaim Kanievsky, and Chaim Kanievsky said, no, be'emes, they hold that tiltum and atzad is also like the Chazon Ish. Avadi can't take crumbs and move them with a knife. Chas v'sholem. You certainly can't do it to eggshells. So what's the pshat? So then why over here is it mutter? The Teretz is because they held that crumbs is a graf shel rei. They held that the muksa was a graf shel rei. The Olam was asking me that day. That's why I'm saying this. They held that crumbs is like it was so dreadful to the people and whatever. It's a graf shel rei, and they're machmir that a graf shel rei it's a chumrah. You hear this? In the first mahalach, it was a kula. You don't have to be machmir like the Chazon Ish. You can be meko like the Mishnah Berurah. The second mahalach, the pshat is that no, be'emes, muksa, which is a graf shel rei, you're allowed to move with your hand. Technically, we're going to learn sugya this week in Mitzvah Shem of graf shel rei, but you're allowed to move with your hand. On that, they were machmir. Why move with your hand when you could do it minat tzad? Which is a little bit hard to understand because according to the Chazon Ish, it's not called minat tzad. Right? It's a little bit hard to understand, and it's not minat tzad. If you believe it, you believe it. If not, no. But akapanim for us, then time dividless and machnishtois. It doesn't make enough kamina because by us we're allowed to move it anyways with something else because we all like the Mishnah Berurah. But I thought you'd find this very interesting. I certainly found it interesting. Okay, that's number one. Number two is animal food. So I mentioned the other day that I see it's not just a Shmir Shabbos. I see it's a bunch of Svarim. They all bring down animal food, which is whatever we're going to convey today. If bones are animal food, if whatever, we'll see in a moment. It's going to be a lot of leeway over here. But it's all if, we're going to see bones and all these things. It's all if these things weren't thrown out on Erev Shabbos. The Shmir Shabbos, and then a lot of the Svarim bring this down. That if it was thrown out on Erev Shabbos, let's say we'll establish today you have a heter of bones, even if you don't have a dog or whatever, doesn't matter, it's animal food, okay? So, but that's all if you didn't throw it out on Erev Shabbos. Once you threw it out on Erev Shabbos, game over. This animal food is no longer animal food, it's garbage. It's garbage and it doesn't have the shame of animal food. And that's a huge one, Rabbi said. That's a huge one because that means in the Erev Shabbos, if you had in the garbage, you had bones, if the kids ate on Erev Shabbos. Sometimes the children eat earlier than the parents and whatever. Or sometimes, you Erev Shabbos, you wanted to debone something and whatever. And they're in there. And now you got a muksa in the garbage. And Shmir Shabbos says it's muksa. And a lot of Svarim, all the Svarim, I didn't see anybody who disagrees with the Shmir Shabbos, but they all quoting the Shmir Shabbos, right? And so one Sefer writes, move up, kol poiskim or something like that. And then you see on the bottom is Mekairis, and he has mamish like 5-6 Svarim there. But it's kulam meroya echas nitnu. They're all coming from the Shmir Shabbos. So in the Gemara says, right, that's called one chacham. The Gemara says that the Gemara says, did he hear it from him? The Gemara in a few places. Did he hear it from that Amoira or not? The Gemara says, l'may nafkamina. So Gemara says, no, nafkamina is that the mechshav gavri. Because if you have a lot of people, then it's already 5 against 1. That's scary. I'm not going to take on all the Paisei Yisrael, right? But if it's just a Shmir Shabbos is very big, right? But then it's just a Shmir Shabbos. It's just a Shmir Shabbos. I think the Shmir Shabbos is against the Pashat Pshat in all the Paisei here. Mamish from Sif Chav Zayin, Chav Ches, Chav Tes, Lamed, the whole entire Sefer Shulchan Aruch L'Daiti, every single sif and every single drop of ink here is against that. It's against that. Just to explain it before I prove it, but just to explain it, that why in Svar it's so upgefragt. Everybody's like, we're going to show today, we started showing already, and that's Mekubal by the Shmir Shabbos himself. If you have bones and you don't plan on giving them to a dog, no one in this room is giving his bones to a dog. And I'll tell you a secret, the Chafetz Chaim he also didn't give. Chafetz Chaim didn't give his bones to dogs. He didn't have a dog. Chafetz Chaim didn't have a dog. And, we know everything about the Chafetz Chaim. I promise you, that the Chafetz Chaim Gahat Ahund, if he had a dog, we would know. We knew everything else about the Chafetz Chaim. So we would know that he didn't have a dog, he wasn't feeding, he didn't have, and I don't think most of the Gedolei Yisrael had a dog, or any animal for that matter. And that's what I imagine, and I think I'm right. So, there's a whole sugi here. There's a whole sugi over here about feeding animals. So we're going to see today, and we keep on seeing over and over again, it's lav dafka that you have to actually be giving it the payal. We saw already from the pashtus, we saw the Yashiv told us that, but that's the pashtus over here. Lav dafka, you're feeding the dog in order for it to get the shame of animal food. That we already saw. And Memela, and more, so look at Tiv Kav Ches, for example. All over, you could do this everywhere, but Tiv Kav Ches is the shortest. I'll do it in Tiv Kav Ches. Chavile Eitzim V'kash, Sheskina L'Meichel Behema, Afilu Eim Gedoy L'Marbe, Mutal L'Taltalin. No, that's the wrong one. Sorry, Chavtas. That one just tells you about things that are set aside for animal food or whatever. Okay, so here, look at Chavtas. I don't know, and the truth I can do is everywhere. Chavtas. Kol shehu roi l'meichel chayav v'oifa mitzuyim. If it's something that's roi for animals, then you're allowed to. If it's roi for animals and the animals are motzi, then it's allowed. Ain't a roi. Let's say you have animal food, which is not right for animals, except for maybe like an elephant or something. So then you're not allowed. Then it depends. If you have an animal, you have an animal. If you don't have an animal, then not. Right? So what does it say here in Shulchan Aruch? It says, which we'll see soon. If you have no animals, but there's animals in the town. If you have no animals, but there's animals in town, then it's already called Meichel Behema. If there's no animals in the town, then it depends if you have an animal or not. Right? That's what it says here in Shulchan Aruch. If you have an animal, it doesn't matter if there's animals in the town. Right? If you don't have an animal, so then it depends. Is it in the town that did they have animals or did they not have animals? It says lo yishtamid from echad of the placekim. Nobody ever mentioned over here, which is what we said the other day, that in the case of where there's animals in the town, I don't have an animal. So there's no question he's not knocking on his animal's door, on his friend's door. I have a question. If I say in the Haim, many shtetlich didn't even have an erev. Right? This is one of the biggest fights all over Europe, all over the world. There were no Arabs. So somebody should write over here in halacha. Magen Avraham should say. Magen Avraham everywhere talks about when there's halacha, which is negay an erev. So Magen Avraham should say. He'd say, this whole halacha is if there's an erev. Okay? Because if there's no erev, obviously you can't bring over the food to your neighbor because you don't have an erev, and therefore it doesn't get a shame of Michael Beim. It's garbage by you because you're obviously not bringing it. So somebody should speak these things down. It's so clear and sussum over here that the shame of Michael Behema has nothing to do with feeding it to the animal, if you're actually going to feed it or if you're not. We'll see. It might need that bechefza, the Mishabura and Sif Lamed. He talks about certain types of pits that are so inedible, nobody kimat feeds it to their animals. Then the Mishabura says, it's so inedible, kimat, nobody, that means in the chefza, it's already not considered animal food. In the same Be'er Lacha, he says, but let's say you have pits and shells and bones, and nobody feeds it to their dogs. You know why? Because they have phyto bits and chow pops and whatever. They have all the types of dog pops and all types of zachet. So they don't feed this. So Mishabura says, who cares? That's explicit in the Be'er Lacha, explicit, that if something is right and no one's feeding it, even the dog owners aren't feeding it. So you see over here, it's not necessarily tali. I think everyone agrees now, it's not necessarily tali, am I going to give it? Okay? With that akdama, which we proved that the other day, but more and more we're going to see this. It's not going to be tali if I'm actually giving it. We want to know one thing, is it roy lebehema? That's what we want to know. Is it roy lebehema? Okay. Is I bezayir, baisai. So now, I have on my table bones. And we just proved beyond the shadow of a doubt, at least we'll see in a moment. There might be one more tonight that we have to get through. But we proved bones, is bones roy for dogs? There's no question, okay? So assuming there's dogs in the vicinity or whatever, fine, that we'll talk about. So then this is called Michael Behema. I am not planning on feeding it. In the times of Chazal, they also weren't planning on feeding it. I am not Bichlal. The Chavetz Chaim also dishkahat kenhon. He also didn't have a dog. But it still has a shame of an animal food, okay? So now it's on my plate. Is it muksa on my plate? No. Is anybody planning on giving this to a dog? No. Okay, so now I put it in the garbage. What changed? Well, what changed? It's mamish mind-boggling. On the plate, it was called animal food. But I'm not giving it to an animal. Right? I don't plan on giving it to an animal. And on the plate, I didn't plan on giving it to an animal. But yet it has a shame of animal food, right? Because it's something that's right for an animal. So what changed? You put it into the garbage on Erev Shabbos. Who cares? Who cares? On the plate, it also, I wasn't planning on giving it to a dog. So Elamai, because I did a maisa. What maisa? My mitzias is a maisa. My entire mitzias is a maisa. My mitzias of never ever feeding dogs is a maisa. This house doesn't feed dogs, right? We have a sign on the door, no dogs allowed, right? So then that sign should be it's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. If the chefta, it's not like the cases of the poskim they spoke about by kli cheres. They spoke about when something broke and whatever. So then you understand, there was a shame kli. This thing cracked. The shame kli lost, but maybe if you plan on using it, maybe it'll have a shame kli. So when you put it in the garbage, you're showing it doesn't have a shame kli. It's not something that's going to be in my arsenal of usable items. Yes, by the fact that I put it into the garbage shows that, whatever. Here it's bechefza animal food. You're never giving it to a dog. You don't have a dog. The Chavetz Chaim nishkaken dog. You didn't have a dog. And Afa Pikein, it's all tali. Is it something that has a shame of Michael Behema? So what the world is the difference if I put it in the garbage? It's so upgefrekt that it's a tamer rabba. If one sefer made the mistake, it's one thing, but that every sefer keeps on going over this toyas over and over again, it's upgefrekt the gamre toyas gamer. And therefore, there's no shaila. Bein if you threw it out on Erev Shabbos, bein if you threw it out on Shabbos, it's all going to be totally in one thing. The rest of the Gedarim over here, what's called roy? Is everybody understand what I'm saying? Or am I being clear? Clear? Okay, that's the chayra. Now the Maisa, just a few things before I get back into the sugya. A bone. If you see a child, no matter what, you didn't learn the sugya. I mean, we're learning it right now, but you don't know yet. Maisa, you see a child near a bone and whatever, could you grab the bone away from the kid? So then we have a lot of reasons to be makel. First of all, we're going to see soon, half the time the bones are going to be roy lebehema, and we might have what's called behemas. Okay. Second of all, we have Rashi. Never forget Rashi. Rashi held that all bones are not muks. And whatever. I'm not saying anyone should be seimich on this. Third of all, we have hezek. A child with a bone is not a good thing. So you don't even have to think twice when it comes to a bone, at least when it comes near damage of a child, because we have so many terim anyways, that you don't have to think twice about. That's number one. Sorry? Yeah, half the time the bone is going to have marrow and heterim like that anyways. I'm saying, if I say vite, when you see it by a child, don't even think twice. I mean, it goes without saying, but the things that go without saying, you have to say. That's number one. Number two is skin and fat. Skin from chicken and fat from meat. No one talks about over here. No one talks about. It seems like that was pushed by everyone. That's food. right? Gute Yidden versteht das geht, but not everybody understands that. But that's enough that you don't have animal food. It's enough that you have like Heimish Essen. That's enough that you don't Hund. You don't need a dog for that. It's enough that there's enough people out there. Now you're going to say, no one is eating the skin off of my plate, right? You understand? No one's going to eat the skin off my plate once it was on my plate. So first of all, I guess my father chef for Shlema, but if you grew up in my house, that's not a kasha. And to other people also, it's probably not a kasha. I mean, good to eat, that's not a kasha. But also doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make a difference. We're trying to figure out, does it have the shame of oichel? It has the shame of oichel. The fact that you don't like skin, there's people out there, they don't like dark meat. So in that house, the dark meat is it's going to be muksa. It's like a weird thing. Chicken skin isn't food. The fact that you don't eat it, that doesn't make any nafkamina. It's pashit like that. I saw one sefer has a whole shtickle tire about chicken and fat and skin. There's no kasha. The reason they didn't bring it down is because that's a vada shem oichel. That's something. Remember the svar we said the other day by breadcrumbs. That today by us it remains food and never lost a shame food. That svar was pashit to everyone when it came to skin and fat, and that has never changed. That will never change. That's number 2. Number 3. Also a shtickle aside question, which is the sugi we have to come back to. And it's Hashem. It's just that I have to explain this here because I'm not sure if the Olam will understand the Mishabru unless I explain. There's a Taisus in Beya. Taisus in Beya to affect the kasha. Taisus says, what's Bichlal going on over here? Really, the truth is already the Shulchan Aruch is Maram says. I mentioned this, but it's in order to understand Mishabru, what he's coming to do, I'll explain it. Taisus says, what's going on over here? I have bones, assuming the bones are muksa. We're going to get back and forth, obviously. But let's say you have shells or whatever, things that are muksa. So now these shells are on the plate. They're on the plate. So Taisus says to Kasha, wait. And talks about picking up the plate and throwing it in the garbage. In fact, Taisus says, what's going on here? How do you pick up the plate? The plate is muksa. We know that's the biggest saibas, buses. That's the biggest saibas, right? She's the holder of the muksa. So just like the shells you can't take off. So how are you allowed to pick up the plate? That's frek Taisus and Bay. That's right, Taisus and Bay has 3 terutzim. Some of them you know already. I'm just being mesaderit, right? So that when you read the Mishabura, it makes sense. One teretz in Mishabura that Taisus brings down is Taisus says, well, there's a heter of shachach in basis. If somebody forgot something, it doesn't become a basis. He says, well, here I didn't forget. He says, yeah, but what's the lumdis of basis? What's the lumdis of shachach? Lumdis of shachach is that I don't dafka want it here. The basis means I bedafka want it here. He says, shells you bedafka want here. You don't bedafka want here. You just don't know where else to put them or whatever. Okay, that's a little bit of a harder teretz. We'll have to come back there. He says easier teretz in Taisus. So he says, very simple. Very simple. There's no basis if you plan on taking it off. If it's only a basis if you plan on leaving it on the whole Shabbos. If you plan on taking the sauce, of course, you want to eat. And then afterward, you plan on taking it and throwing it in the garbage. So therefore, it didn't become a basis. That's easier teretz. But then Taisus says the teretz that the Shulchan Aruch goes with, which you all know by now. Shulchan Aruch says, because we're talking about a basis l'davar mutter and davar aser, because there's another thing on the plate. There's bread on the plate is what he's talking about. I said a plastic knife, a fork, whatever, regular knife, whatever. That's the 3 terutzim. So according to those terutzim, can you have a basis on Shabbos? The answer is yes. The answer is yes. According to all those terutzim, you can have a basis on Shabbos. Okay? Just that in our case is different. Our case is different because there's something mutter. Our case is different because it's like shachar. Our case is different because you plan on taking it off. The Balmor says you can't have a basis on Shabbos. Everything had to be established at Ben Hashmashis. Now, I'm not going to be myrich on this. This is Mitzvah Shem, we're going to learn basis, and we'll come back to it. I just said it now because otherwise it gets a little difficult to read the Mishabruas over here. He assumes you know all this. And more so, it's the Shulchan Aruch. He takes a big statement here. The Shulchan Aruch says, again, I'm just going to give you a little glimpse into what's going on here. But the Shulchan Aruch says, if these things are taka, not roi l'maychel behema, then it's aser. Ella, what do? You have to do near, just like to take the plate and let it just fall on the floor. And then he says, but if there's bread on it, then it's mutter to pick it up. That's what he says here. Because hein batel agav a pas. So you see that the Shulchan Aruch is going with which teretz? It's going with the teretz that if you have food on the plate, then we could talk, right? If you have food on the plate, you have something mutter on the plate. So now it becomes a basis. That means there could be a basis on Shabbos. That everyone's been asking that question. You see, you can have a basis on Shabbos. Come again? Because if you go to other terutzim, you don't need that. The Taisus other teretz is that I could just pick up the shells, because it's like a shachach or whatever. According to that, you don't need it. So he's taking a very big stand over here. right? And again, I'm telling you, believe me, that we're going to come back to all this. But there's stuff that goes on over here, which is, it's unbelievable. There's a Chazon Ish in Memches Gimel. The Chazon Ish says, there's no makor in the whole Shulchan Aruch to this Shulchan Aruch. In the whole Gemara, in the whole Shas, there's no makor in all of Shas to this Shulchan Aruch. He argues in Shulchan Aruch. He says, we only found by a mace that you could take something mutter, and because, there's a mutter thing, you could be metaltal the mace. He says, what is this? What is this? Mazah. You take bread, you put it on top of the plate, and now I could do such a thing. He says, what's going on over here? He's very, very distraught, the Chazon Ish. And you know who else is distraught? The Igros Moshe. Moshe Feinstein in Heichaf Aleph, I think it was, I wrote here, Yudalit, he says, the Shulchan Aruch is a Pella. Again, we paskin like this, Shulchan Aruch. We paskin like this, Mishnah Berurah. We have to come back to all this stuff. But it comes out, it's an unbelievable thing. And I don't know, B'nai Brak, it's, what do? The Mishnah Berurah says you can even take a fork and the Chatchila put it on the plate. I showed you that. The Mishnah Berurah says you can even put a fork. The Chasam Sofer says, no, you can't. The Mishnah Berurah says, yes, you could. He says, no, the Mishnah Berurah says the word efsher. Stam, the Mishnah Berurah, when he writes the word efsher, he writes it b'derech hanivis. He's not writing, it's a psak. When the Mishnah Berurah says efsher, that's a klal in Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah says the Aruch HaShabbos doesn't know the klal because in two places over here he says not like that. But that's a klal. That klal I heard from Rav Scheinberg. I heard that from Rav Yashiv. When the Mishnah Berurah says the word efsher is a psak. It's just written b'derech hanivis. The truth is the Prima Gadim does that a lot. He writes efsher, everything efsher. The Mishnah Berurah wouldn't write efsher if he wouldn't stand by it. The Mishnah Berurah holds another example where the Mishnah Berurah said efsher. In Bir Lacha and Sif Lamed, he says, like I said before, if you have bones, but my dogs eat Fido bits. My dogs don't eat bones, and nobody's dogs eat bones, whatever, right? I don't know. You have to ask this Chaver in Ramat Eshkol. I wanted to ask today, but I wanted to ask them over here. You see like a bunch of dogs dragging around. I want to ask them, do you guys feed bones to the dogs, right? So they're going to say, no, we eat only Nimrod bits, or I don't know, whatever they have. I don't know, an Israeli brand, whatever. So B'kai Govna. And nobody does, right? Says the Mishnah Berurah, who cares? He doesn't say who cares. He says, Efsher, Lashon the Mishnah Berurah, Efsher doesn't matter. It's still as a din of Meichel Behema. That's a psak. That's a psak from the Mishnah Berurah. Even though you feed your dog Fido bits, it doesn't make a difference. That's already going to be considered, the Efsher of the Mishnah Berurah is a psak. That's done. But Al-Kapan Mishnah Berurah goes, Ad Kidei Kach, that you can Efsher, which is a psak, put the knife on the plate after that you have the shells and you have all these things. So people always have all these shilas. They filled up a whole plate or a cup of shells. And what do you do now? What do you do now? Like, man, how are you going to take this thing? So we'll see if it's a Graf Sharei, whatever, all things. But now you know for the rest of your life that the Mishnah Berurah is Mekel. You can take a knife, put it inside the fork, Don't put knives in forks. You put it inside the cup, and then carry that cup to the garbage. Right? That's done. Maybe it's better to do it beforehand. Why get involved in the shayla a little bit? But in B'nai Brak, this doesn't go. This is, again, I hope the Olam will see this themselves, but without this, it's hard to understand. We are going to come back to it. That's a side sugya of bosses. Okay, now we come back to our sugya. Let's come back. Now, in our sugya over here, I mentioned the other day that, again, it doesn't sound like they're looking for animals. It doesn't sound like it. It all just sounds like we're trying to figure out one thing. Is it mutzi to have animals? Is it not mutzi to have animals? It doesn't sound like anybody's looking to feed animals. Now, Rabbi Bergman, the other day, he mentioned to me something which I also agree with. If you read the entire Mishnah Berurah, I tricked you the other day a little bit. I had this question, and I don't know, and then Rabbi Bergman asked me the question, it bothered me more, and then I see this is really what the Ibn Yisrael is saying, Dayan Fisher is saying. You know, anybody who reads Shin Ches over here, Siv Chav Zayin, Chav Ches, Chav Tes, and Lamed, so he's going to come out like this. He's going to come out that if the thing is edible by animals, I just need to figure out Chav Tes. What's Chav Tes? I just need to figure out, are there animals in the vicinity, which is what we'll talk about today. That's what he's going to do. That's what he's going to try to figure out. I gave you a whole Torah the other day about the rules of feeding animals, and I told you all the halachas of feeding animals. Quite interesting, and it's important to know. But I told you all the rules of feeding animals, and I based it on the Magen Avram, because the Magen Avram says, and that's how the Machzeh Shekel, and I saw also the Tila David. In Machzeh Shekel and Tila David, they say over there in Shin Chav Daled, they say, go ayin arsif, Shin Ches, Siv Chav Tes, and the Machzeh Shekel and the Tila David explain what does it mean. Go see over there. Not in every single situation is animal food not muksa. What does it depend on? It depends on the sif and shin chav daled. If it's something you're allowed to feed the animal, So then the food is not muksa. If you can't feed the animal on Shabbos, then of course the food is muksa. But no one's going to know that. No one's going to know that. There's nobody in this room that should know that. If you read Mishnah Berurah, you're not going to know that. You're not going to know that. I asked the bar mitzvah bacher who learns Mishnah Berurah. He has a little bit of a limit how to learn Mishnah Berurah and whatever. So I asked him to read that Shulchan Aruch, right? And I told him, read the Shulchan Aruch. He read the Shulchan Aruch, right? And then read the next Shulchan Aruch, Chavtes. I told him Chavzayin, Chavtes, right? And I asked him a question. I said to him, there's a whole bunch of halachas about feeding animals on Shabbos, and so let's say, it's an animal which is not mizaynos of alav. I can't feed animals on Shabbos. It's not my dog. So this halacha is only for when it's your dog. So he told me, no, can't, avadana. No, like mamish with the simplicity. No, avadana. That's mefurish in Shulchan Aruch, not like that. I just want to show you how the simple person reads Shulchan Aruch, right? I mean, he's not simple. He's going to be a good old door one day, but the Vaili is not, right? In Chavtes it says, "Kol shu royal Michael chayev oif hamitzuyim." If you have animal food, bones and things like that, and it's right for the animals that are around. He said it doesn't say if you have animals. It says the animals that are around. So it's obviously it's not talking that you're going to feed the animals. Right? That's how he said it. And not only that, in the next line it says there are cases where it depends on you. If you have an animal and the other oilam doesn't, but it's clear that the first guy was talking about somebody that didn't have an animal. So if you didn't have an animal, so then obviously it's not talking about that stafka mizaynos of olav. I thought, but dogs you're always allowed to feed, even if you don't own the dog. We saw, right? So but it's not just talking about dogs; it's talking about animals in general. He's right. It's Pashut Shah. It's a pel on the it's a pel on the Magen Avram. The way the Machzor Shekel, you should know the Prima Gadim learns not like that in the Magen Avram. He says he's just sending you over there to tell you go and look that sometimes animals just to know which foods you can feed animals. Like just not. He's just telling you, it's not now that I'm telling you can feed animals if it's mezainos of olav. So what am I going to feed the little critter? Okay, so go look over there and you'll see. It depends, sometimes you could feed animals, sometimes you can't. He's just telling you to go look over there what the animal. So the truth is that Dayan Fisher, l'chayra, is the pashtus. Dayan Fisher, the Mor HaShabbos, in the 29th tshuva over there, in the 13th tshuva, the 29th paragraph, he says over there that even though it's usher to feed the animal on Shabbat, that doesn't take away from the shame of being roy and being called Michael Behema. And that is a theme that you keep on seeing over and over and over and over here. Shmuel talks about, I feed my animal Nimrod bits. I don't feed my animal bones. No animals here eat bones. Who cares? Mishnah Berurah says, who cares? As long as it's roy, that's what's enough. As long as it's right, that's what you keep on seeing over and over. So it doesn't matter that I'm feeding that dog on Shabbos. There's no Erev. I'm for sure not going outside. Doesn't say anywhere here there has to be an Erev. I'm for sure not feeding an animal because there's no Erev. Nobody says over here anything about that. I have Moira because those, I don't know, it's a Magen Avram, that the way the Machzor Shekel, it's clear nish to say in the Pashut Shah in the Mishnah Berurah. What? They all say, yeah? What? No, what I was saying over there was the rules of Mizarnes of Alecha. No, I was bringing it. No. Don't get confused. Everything I said on Thursday with Mizarnes of Alecha are the rules of Mizarnes of Alecha, of when you're allowed to feed animals. I was just saying you need to know those rules because I said there are some Sfarim that compare, because the Machzor Shekel compares. So I told you all the rules. But now I'm chayzul legamrei. You see from the Mishnah Berurah, no one is going to know that. I told you the secret. No one knows this. No one knows this. You only know that because I told it to you. That means if you'd read here, you would never in a million years know this. Which means that's the l'chayr, not the halacha. L'chayr. I don't know. What? Sorry? Yeah. Am I understanding? Why is it changed with the breadcrumbs? No, because that's what we're saying. It's nowhere, no one in the world, since it's not Matzi, it's slain with the whole concept of feeding animals and whatever. It's just non-existent by us, this whole thing. That's where the difference might be. What? Maybe after it's not going again. I'm not being typhus, but I could find him. I mean, it's bar over here that nobody says that you have to be allowed to feed the animals. I don't. It's tamur. Somebody should have to say it. The Mishnah Berurah should have to say it. The truth is that the Prima Gadim is right in the Magen Avram because the Magen Avram should have said it over here. He's saying it over there. Over here is where it's negated to say it. Well, you should say over here that it's tamur. What? Yeah. That again, all the rules I said on Thursday I was saying them. Nobody else, the Yashiv wasn't saying that. I was saying that kefid those rules is going to make it nafkamina if it's muksa or not. I was saying that. Rabbi Yashiv was only talking about the rules when you're allowed to feed animals. So I was saying that kama you're allowed to feed animals. So then it makes it not muksa. Kama you're not going to feed animals. Rabbi said, I'm going to go further. It has nothing to do with mitzuya, and it has nothing to. Rabbi said, if you have cats, you see what's going on. I watched a cat. He was pounding coleslaw. He was sitting there. He was eating coleslaw. You know the cats, they love this stuff. He was eating coleslaw. Somebody threw out a whole thing of coleslaw, and there he was, right? And he was so mamash if he was a Garfield. Some other cat came over. He had a whole tub of Garfield. He had a whole tub of coleslaw. And another cat came in next to him and started screaming at him, right? And the other cat found rice. They eat rice. These it's no mice. They eat rice. They eat coleslaw. This is going to be a big savior. Do cats eat bones? What? They eat bones? The fish ones they pound. Right? You ever see what goes on with the fish? You see them dragging down the street. You ever see what goes on over there? Right? You know what I'm talking about, right? Everyone knows what I'm talking about. But the fish bones, zicher, they ask them, right? And this is a big savior over here in Yerushalayim. This is going to be a big savior. Are you allowed to feed them on Shabbos? No. It's not Mezainas of Alecha, but it's not totally in the rules of Mezainas of Alecha. It's totally in Matsui. It changes the whole world. Everything's about to change over here. Everything's about to change. Let's see. So what's Matsui? Now we got all the way here, which means, again, let's just see where we got. We got that if you have meat on the bones, game over for sure. Breadcrumbs, I can't understand how they're muksa. Okay. How to clean off the table, we saw. Even if it is muksa, you can certainly do it tiltum and atzad. You can put bread on the plate, pick up the plate, throw it into the garbage, out to the Okay. Then we got to, you don't need mizainas of alav. Okay. And then we got to, you don't even need that the animals actually eat this stuff. It just has to be right that they eat this stuff. And then we got to, even if it's in their garbage, on Erev Shabbos, right? It doesn't matter. As long as it's right, doesn't shine enough. The only question we have to get through is, so what is called that there are animals? Because if there are no animals around, then of course it's not Michael Behema, right? That no one said. I mean, the truth is, I shouldn't say no one said. There's a very weird Shmir Shabbos. It's a weird thing. I don't know. Maybe I read it wrong. You guys should read it. It's in the Shmir Shabbos in the 12th parak, in the 96th ois over there. He says something weird. I don't know. He says himself I'm saying something weird. So I don't know. He says, Rosh Zman said that even if there's no animals around, and he says, it's against Shulchan Aruch. Yeah, but tzarchim. I don't know. Take a look there. It's exactly what it says. It's very weird. I don't know. So let's go behelim that. Let's go without that. I don't know what it means. So let's just assume it doesn't say it. So and it says it in the new volume too. I don't know. It's like a weird thing. I don't know. I called up his son to ask him. It's so weird. I called up his son to ask him what this is. He says he's going to look at it. I don't know. I mean, it got into the second volume. I said, you wrote there, Shlomo Zalman said something against Shulchan Aruch, and then you write b'tzarchim. So I have a better idea. Maybe don't write it, and maybe Shlomo Zalman never said it. That was my idea. So he said he's going to look into it. No, but it's like a weird thing. No, it can't be. I don't know. So look what it says in Shulchan Aruch. If you have animals, birds, schnitzels, right, and chayas, and what are good chayas, like leopards and whatever, hamitzuyim. If you have animals that are matzui, so then if it's roy for that animal, the animals that are matzi in the town, or we have to see what, then you're allowed to metaltel. If ein roy elu l'maycha, if the only thing you have things that are not roy for the animals that are around, you have things that are roy for animals that are not around, then it's muksa, unless you have such an animal. In yesh loy ma'asim, you point out, what do we have there? I can't remember now. What do you have? A hippo with like a short hippopotamus, right? So he has a hippopotamus, right? So what does your hippo eat? What does it eat? I mean, it's not real. You mean it eats like everything, right? So Duvi has a hippopotamus. So then then taka, even the things that aren't so normal. But so then Duvi won't have muks in his house, kima, right? But that won't necessarily help us. Okay, that's the rules. Okay, so now let's see what's called matzi. Okay, let's get to work. Now, the fact that there are cats, I'm not a catologist. I mean, you got to find out what do cats eat, right? So I got it last night. I was throwing out the garbage in those things, right? And then Taka, I wanted to give him a bone, but I thought it wouldn't be a raya if he doesn't eat it. I was going to take out like a bone and give it to him. I thought it wouldn't be a raya because he's got coleslaw, right? Who says he's going to go, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, who says he's holding by mamish like a gourmet slaw, and what, you're going to throw him a bone, he's going to laugh at you. What? Oh, God bless you. Yeah? Thank you. Are you sure there wasn't chicken on it? Are you sure it was a cat? There's definitely a cat. He was sitting there eating. Right? It's pressing away. Right? The whole thing. The whole thing. Okay, so then it's game over. It's game over. And Yerushalayim, it's over. By the way, are there cats in Borough Park? I don't remember anymore. Cats in Borough Park. Right? I remember the mice. The cats. What? I'm saying, so the cats, and some of these Israeli cats, man, they look like German shepherds, these chevra, like they're not small, they're like big guys. No, I'm saying that's a big savior. That's a big, huge savior. It's a huge savior of here. So they talk. I saw like this. Everybody's talking about this. The Mishnah Berurah is so hard to read over here. Whoever has chat in the Mishnah Berurah, you give him something special. You have to give him like a reward. Mishnah Berurah over here, he says, what's called matzi? He says, well, I'll tell you what Einoi Matzi is. Kufya test. Listen to this Mishnah Berurah. Whoever gets shot in this Mishnah Berurah is a special person. If the animals are Einoi Matzi, Eitzel Roiv B'nei Adam. If they're not found by most people, if I say we live with Jewish people, most Jews don't have animals anyways. You're telling me what? It's got to be 49% of the community has these actual animals? It's telling you in Roiv? What does Mishnah Berurah just say? He just said, if you have animals, if you have food that's right to animals, but the animals are Einai Matzi. Says the Mishnah Berurah, it's not Matzi, it's Roiv B'nei Adam. So it's totally I have to have 51% of the population as dogs. We lived in ghettos. We didn't live with the Goyim and us. So then it's over. Then the whole halacha is over because there's no 51% animals out there. And then the Mishnah Berurah fears ice. He fears ice like this. He says, Umad Ashirim Megadlin Oisan. And that which rich people have these animals, that's not called matzi. There's a lot in between. Right? Some rich guy, he owns a monkey. That's not enough. The rich guys own monkeys. That's not enough. It's got to be what Roiv people have. Hello, Roiv people don't have animals. In Radin, Roiv people don't. I was there. Roiv people didn't have animals in deep sight. So what's what? But how do you read the Mishnah Berurah? Roiv, it says Roiv. What? Right, people had chickens in Radin. So, yes, he's saying it's right. It's talking right. It's got to be right. It's got to be right. Chayev oif, it says here. It says chayev oif, not just chickens. Well, right people had what? Bears, right? Beard? Deer. Right people have deers. Ich meine, Bambi wird gehabt schon a deer. Ja, normale Menschen hat nicht kein Deer, ja? What is it? So the Minchas Yitzchak asked this kasha. The Yitzchak says, what's going on over here? In Zayin to Zayin, I wrote something else, Aleph, I don't know. And he says, Stam b'nei Adam, I don't know. The Rav Nissen Karelitz, I think, says the Emes Mahalach here. He is on the 135. This is how I learned it, and I saw Rav Nissen says it, I don't know. This is the only way I can understand it. He says, what's normal by the Stam animal owners? That's what he writes. What's considered, but even that I don't like, because I just told you a minute ago, it's not totally in animal owners and things like that, right? You know what I think it means? I think it means like this. I think it means if you would see this in the street, it's normal. Like we find in Matzi all over the place. Right? I'll admit that in a minute I'm going to have a hard time reading the Mishnah Berurah, but let's at least get Pashup Shad first. Okay? The Pashup Shad is that if I walk down the street and I see a hippopotamus, after I, say Asher Yotzer, right? So, I'm going to be shocked. It's a shocking revelation, this hippopotamus. It's quite a shocking, I told you I saw a goat. And I told you here, I said it, right? I told you by Ramat Shlomo. I told you it's, a goat, right? What? No, but I didn't tell you guys, okay? I know if it was the neighbor. The neighbor had to go, right? I saw a goat. I didn't say, I said in this year. Kids, I saw a goat. I saw a goat the other day in Ramat Shlomo. Right? I found out I saw his owner also, a goat from some Arab from across the street, which got me starting to think. Right? And there he was. He was taking a walk. What? He was taking a walk. What? Friday morning, right before I went to give my shir. That's where I was. I gave my chumrah shir. I said it over there. But he was walking a goat. On Friday by the guy by the Arabs is what's it called? Is Lahavdil, is their day off, or whatever. So there he was. He was going for a walk. Maybe he's married to her. I don't know. But there he was taking a Shabbos walk with her, with Fatima, whatever you call. And there he was. It was so normal. It was so normal. It's so normal. That was quite shocking. I found it interesting. That means goats are not motzi in Ramat Shlomo. Okay, I think we all agree. Okay, and we'll see in a minute. It's not so pasha what I just said. Not a pasha at all. Okay, and dogs in Ramat Shlomo, not so motzi. We'll see here. Maybe it is, but cats is very motzi. I see a cat and I say, wow, cat, wow, little mini lion. How cute. No, nobody says it. It's like normal, right? How do you read the Mishnah Berurah? I guess she'ein and motzi eitzel roiv b'nei adam. Again, I think it's al derech Reb Nissen. It means it's not the norm that's found by the people that have animals, by roiv people, these things, and it means they're not around. In those days, most people, they just own the animals. Right? And it doesn't matter that some ashirim have some weird things. That's not enough. Okay. I guess goldfish is probably normal. I guess, is chickens normal in your neighborhoods, guys? Talmidei Chachamim? Yeah? Really? It's normal. Just listen to the words you just said. It's normal. What? It's matzah till some of the ashir. It's matzah to some of the aniyim, right? I think it's normal. It's normal. Cats is normal, Rabbi say. Goldfish is normal. I don't know. Yeah, I didn't say Beis Yisrael. Rabbi Stender. I didn't say where you live. You live in that neighborhood over there? I didn't say over there. Over there, everything is normal. Okay, so that's a raya. It's not so normal. Not so normal, right? Not so normal. What? In Romania, it's not. Okay. What? No, but I said before, you don't, Dafnish can pet. It's Dafnish can pet. It's enough for such a trait. It's normal that they exist and that they dray around. Yeah, that's it. What? The Mishnah you have to learn. I'm not 100% in the Mishnah. I'm going to go like Reb Nissen probably. That Eitzel Roy B'nei Adam means klape owners. Owners is a siman. Mishnah is not exeris akasiv. It means, why is it that it's normal to have them around? Because the pet owners usually have these types of pets. Okay, but you can have another mitzias. Like, what? So birds is some interesting thing. Birds don't eat bones, but birds, the most they eat is crumbs. Yeah, the most they eat is crumbs. It's true, that is something that it's a kasha. These are kashas. Elamai will be a raya to the tzadim is nice of a love. That's one thing I was thinking. It'll be a raya because birds are not allowed to feed. I was thinking maybe that would be a shtickle raya, not like we're saying. I don't know. Birds is a shtickle kasha. I'm saying it is a bit of a kasha. Wow. Squirrels eat everything? I say squirrels eat, I know they eat roofs, but they eat, they'll eat like a schnitzel and whatever. Yeah? No? No, I'm saying you would know, right? But, Rodden, they had squirrels. What? Sorry? A meat bone, right? Cats still eat that? Dogs. I think he's from Africa. I think that he has more of a right to talk about these things than we do. Taka, the chevra over there, the humans over there probably eat everything. Right? 1 second, the humans over there probably eat stuff also that's not to be believed. Right? They go into the garbage, those guys, right? Right? Where's he, brother? Levi? Where is he? I lost him. Rabbi Marco would say the humans over there eat the stuff, right? They'll go into the garbage and eat them, right? No, it's right. They eat people, those guys from Fiji or wherever you're from, right? Like Muncie, right? You know, The meat bones in Eretz Yisrael. What? There's dogs. We might have dogs. No, so it's very important what you're saying now, Rabbi. My cats can eat up, certainly any coleslaw, any of that stuff. It's no way it's muktzah even when it's in the garbage. We discussed way back when that, coleslaw in the garbage, nobody's eating it. Hello, tell that to the little feline over there. I mean, he eats it, she eats it, they're eating it. So that just took away the shame of a Michael Behema. Excuse me, it took away the shame of a Michael. That I just gave it the shame of a Michael Behema. And it's normal. It's mamash shame of that. The only thing is that now with these new garbages, it's become a little bit problematic. That already that we have to done. What happened over there? What we started? No, but even with the late, it's all right. Let me say one more thing. No, this is something I'm not so sure to do. There's a lot of starving cats out there. I mean, they're worried about vaccines and this. They're worried about this. Right? There's a lot of starving cats and homeless cats. It's a big problem because they made these underground garbage things and dust. You see what goes on by the garbage can. They're sitting there with misty-eyed and all sad and everything. And so it used to be that they would go into the Green Monster, right? They would cut right through and was going to get gas in. So when I, let's say, gave this year 4 years ago, before those underground tunnels and whatever, so then it was touched that the cats eat the coleslaw, the cats eat all the stuff, and maybe the big bones, like you're saying, that we're going to have to see if we have dogs, which I guess, unfortunately, we'll get to tomorrow, to see if we have dogs in our neighborhood. Is it considered we have dogs in our neighborhoods or not? But at least they got my cats. So now it's a big problem. Because Misa, the stuff goes underground, the cats can't go in there, right? If the cats go in there, that's it. They're going to the Oil Madness. It's not all 9 lives ain't going to help them over there. It doesn't, you understand? So so I don't know. I'm not sure what to do about this because a lot of times there's no room in the thing, There's not a room. But and then they mamish pound. Right? But so then you see that it has a shame of a behema. It does because there are many situations of where it's not going to wind up in there. And then for sure, it used to be, they had a little bit more like menschlichkeit, little Catholichkeit to them, They used to be a little bit more, decent. They would only go for open garbages. Now anything goes because anything they can get their hands on, no, what I'm talking about. Anything they get their hands on, they yes, because there's not that much food going around. But Shabbos, for sure. What do you mean? You never saw these chavra. Well, I mean, that's not so nice, but that's what goes on, though. But in Shabbos, for sure, that's what they're doing. That's it. No, that's what I'm saying. So there definitely could still be somewhat of a makim to be makel on things that cats eat, and there's cats in all of our neighborhoods, right? No, these are huge aterim about side copy your garbage. What? The cats are?
They locate a room and they're everywhere.
What?
It's still wrong.
No, I don't know how far to go with it. If it's something that it's true. The feed the beer lacha, maybe. The feed the beer lacha, that's in fact, maybe. But anyways, I'm saying it's not a geya because they're getting some of it. We didn't do anything. But they're, oh my goodness. All right, I don't know. All right, till tomorrow. I don't know. But you guys go further. I'll catch you or something. I don't know.